Every trader I know has had the same moment. You see the setup, you know the rules, and then you do the exact opposite anyway. Not because you're stupid, but because your brain is wired to sabotage you the second real money is on the line. I spent 2.5 years losing to that sabotage. I spent 2.5 years chasing setups, overriding my own rules, watching accounts bleed out while telling myself the next trade would be different. Then my backtesting data showed me something I couldn't ignore. I was up $20,000 on my shorts and $2,000 on my longs. The only difference was the discretion I was trading and the psychology behind each decision. That one data point changed everything for me. It was that exact moment where I realized I was mastering the mental game of day trading. So in the next few minutes, I'm gonna walk you through 4 forces that are quietly destroying your trading right now. The business model that's designed to take your money before you even place a trade, so you can actually succeed and leave that mental trap forever. The business model nobody told you about. Most traders lose money and blame themselves. They think it was because they got the wrong entry or they got the wrong indicator or the wrong timing, but here's the actual truth. The game was already rigged before you even touched the keyboard. Small cap stocks they're failing companies. That's not an opinion, that's not a subjective, that's the business model. They have no product, they have no revenue, and no shot at a bank loan. So they go somewhere else. They cut deals with private lenders, offering shares at a steep discount to market price in exchange for fast cash. The lender gets shares cheap, the company gets money. It's simple enough, except there's a problem. If a stock is only trading 10,000 shares a day, the lender can't dump millions of dollars worth of discounted stock without crashing the price before they get anything out. They need volume first. They need retail traders to build the liquidity so the exit is clean. Enter the press release phase. It hits at 6 in the morning. Partnership with a major tech company, drug trial results look promising, extending into AI. Whatever the hot narrative is that week, this company is wearing that costume. And the language is carefully designed. Words like may, potential, subject to approval, legal enough to avoid fraud, vague enough to imply something that isn't real. Retail traders, they see the gap up, they pile in, demand spikes, volume spikes, price spikes, everything spikes. Now the lender has the liquid market they needed. They start selling their discounted shares directly into that demand that they created. Prices collapse and the trader staring at the red chart, wondering what happened. That was never an accident. That's the cycle. Press release, gap up, S3 filing, retail pile in, institutional exit, collapse. And it repeats every few months because the company reverse splits, resets the float, and runs the whole thing again. Pull up the daily chart on some of these stocks, and you'll see the prices listed in the thousands, even at the millions per share. Now, the stock was never worth anywhere near that. Those are just the scars from dozens of pump cycles stacked on top of each other. I backtested this with a tool called Spike-E. Thousands of gappers going back to 2008. The result wasn't subtle. 67% of stocks that gap up 100% or more end up closing below their opening price by the end of the day. Not sometimes, not in certain conditions. Statistically, across thousands of samples, the strongest looking breakouts in small caps are built to fail by close. Now, here's why this matters for every trader, not just small cap traders. The dilution cycle is just the most visible version of a truth that runs through every single market. The machine is always looking for where retail money is positioned so it can move price to collect it. The specific mechanism changes depending on what you trade. The psychology it exploits does not. Fear of missing a move, hope that this one is different, conviction that you read the tape and overrides the math. That's the real business model, and it runs on your emotions. You don't need to predict where price goes next. You need to understand why it moves and stop putting your money exactly where the machine is designed to take it. Because knowing the business model is step 1. Then there's a second trap most traders walk straight into even after they figured this out, and it's sitting right inside your risk management. Your real opponent is not the market. Most traders who finally understand the dilution cycle make the same mistake next. They flip short. They know the gravity is working in their favor, they take that trade, and they still get stopped out. The stock spikes, triggers their stops, and then fades exactly the way the data said it would, just without them being involved. They chalk it up to bad luck. Well, it isn't bad luck. It's the second layer of the same machine. And your stop loss is the fuel that it runs on. Here's what's actually happening. When you short a gapping stock, the most obvious place in the world to put your stop is above the high of day. Every trader on every platform who is short that stock has the same exact idea. And the professional on the other side of your trade knows that. Their job isn't to predict where the stock goes. Their job is to find where your stop is sitting and manufacture enough buying pressure to trigger it. When they run high of day, they're not making a directional bet. They're harvesting liquidity. Your stop is the inventory they came to collect. I was dead wrong about this for years. I understood the business model. I knew the stock was going to fade. I had the direction right. And I was still losing because I was placing my risks exactly where manipulators wanted it to be. The fix wasn't a better entry. It wasn't a smarter indicator. It was math. math. When I doubled my risk distance and cut my position size in half, my win rate jumped from 45 to 70%. Same stocks, same direction, same setup. The only thing that changed was where my stop lived and how much size I was carrying. Basically, how greedy was I going to be? The wider stop put my risk at a level the stock was statistically unlikely to reach. The smaller position made it financially survivable to hold that distance. These two adjustments together took me off the manipulation grid. Now, here's where most people misread this. They hear wider stops and they think that means a bigger loss. It doesn't. A wider stop with proportionally smaller size means your dollar risk stays identical. You're not actually risking more money, you're just making it harder for the market makers to find you. You become a smaller target in a quieter spot, and suddenly the trades that you used to stop out the high of day are running in your favor by close. You're not smarter than the professional on the other side, you're not faster, you don't have better data in real time. The only structural advantage available to you is positioning yourself where they're not looking. Wide stops, small size, risk levels defined by data rather than by whatever's printed on the intraday chart, that's the edge. Fighting a market maker with a tight stop and an oversized position is why your account looks the way it does. You're not losing because the market is random, you're losing because you keep handling them exactly in the way that they want you to handle them. That's what they need you to do to take your money cleanly and legally. The screen is the weapon they use against you. Every hour you spend watching the tape after you enter is an hour your emotions are running the trade. Not your system, not the data, your emotions. And your emotions aren't working from a 10,000 sample backtest. They're working from fear. Here's what that looks like in practice. You enter the short. The stock spikes 2% in the wrong direction. You start watching the level 2. You see a flicker of buying pressure and your brain starts building a case. Maybe this one's different. Maybe the catalyst is real. Maybe you should tighten the stop just to protect yourself. The moment you've done that, you've handed control of your trade to the same machine that manufactured the spike. That flicker on the level 2 isn't information. It's noise engineered specifically to make you act against your own plan. The solution I built around this is what I call the 90-minute rule. I enter the position in the first 90 minutes of the session. I set a hard stop at a data-defined level the stock is statistically unlikely to reach. And then I leave the desk. Not metaphorically, physically. I walk away and let the math work. I let the data speak for itself. The 67% probability doesn't need my help to play out. It doesn't need me watching it or managing it minute by minute. It needs me to stay out of its way. You stayed glued to the screen because you don't trust the system, or maybe you're having fun. And you don't trust the system because you haven't built one that actually removes your judgment from the equation after entry. Every time you sit here for 6 hours watching a position, you're not actively managing it. You're giving the manipulation, like the manipulators, a 6-hour window to find your breaking point, and eventually they will. They have research teams that have researched psychology and understand the breaking points of humans. The 90-minute rule and the wide stop only hold up if your position size is treated as a law, not a suggestion. Because the moment you start scaling based on how much you believe in a setup, you've introduced your ego into the system that was specifically designed to exclude it. The payroll law. Your ego doesn't belong anywhere near your position sizing, and right now it's running the entire decision. Here's how I think about it. My trading account is a business. Every trade I take is a payroll expense. And just like a real business, the payroll number doesn't change based on how good I feel about a particular hire. A $40,000 account risks $500 per trade. A $400,000 account risks $30,000 per trade. That law doesn't flex because the setup looks exceptional. It doesn't flex because the catalyst is stronger than usual. It doesn't flex because you've been right on the last 3 trades and the edge feels hot. The percentage always stays fixed, always. Now let me give you a real example of what that looks like under pressure. In 2024, DJT was everywhere. The narrative was loud, the volatility was real, the setup was tempting. I didn't take a single share, not because the short thesis wasn't there, it was, but DJT didn't fit my systematic criteria on my payroll. The float, the political risk, unpredictably halt exposure, none of that matched the controlled environment my data was built on. My ego wanted that trade. My system said no. I listened to my system. That's the difference between trading a business and trading a habit. A habit bends when conviction is high. A business doesn't. Think about what happens when you scale size based on conviction. You're telling yourself that your feelings about a specific setup are more reliable than the law of large numbers across 10,000s of samples. They're not. The 67% probability doesn't care how confident you feel. It pays the trader who follows the math, not the one who overrides it for the high conviction play. I survived a $70,000 drawdown without blowing up my account because the payroll law held. Position size never inflated. Risk per trade never grew because the setup looked better than usual. When the drawdown came, the math protected me. The traders who abandoned that law during the same period are the ones who funded the recovery on the other side. That's not a metaphor, that's where real money actually went. And here's the part nobody talks about. The payroll law isn't about protecting your capital during losing stretches. It's about protecting your psychology during winning ones. Because when you're running hot, the temptation to size up feels completely rational. You've earned it, right? The system is working. Why not press harder? But the traders who blow up after profitable runs aren't unlucky. They broke the law during the exact moment it felt optional. That's when it matters most. The traders who ignore the gravity of dilution, who size up on conviction, who move stops based on feelings, they built my entire kinfo profits. Every dollar of that came from somewhere. You need to decide which side of the transfer you're on. So here's what you actually have now. You understand why the market is structured to take your money before you ever even place a trade. You understand that your stop is a target, not a safety net, and that the only way off the manipulation grid is a wider risk with smaller size. You understand that the screen isn't giving you information after entry, it's giving the machine a window into your breaking point. And you understand that position sizing is a law, not a feeling, and the moment you treat it like a suggestion is the moment your edge disappears. That's 4 shifts. Most traders spend years fighting and figuring out all of them. Some never even get there at all. But knowing this and executing it are 2 completely different problems. That gap between understanding the system and actually trading it under pressure in real time with real money on the line, that's exactly what Black Clover is built to close. Real verified data, real accountability, traders who lived through drawdowns and came back from them. No fake screenshots, no BS. If you're serious about closing that gap, the link is in the description. And if you want to go deeper on the one pattern that makes traders break every rule they've set, the thing that happens in the first 15 minutes of your mornings before you even open your broker, I cover it in the next video right here. That's where this system either holds or falls apart, and most traders have no idea what is happening.